Hello Flosstube and welcome to another video. I am Ros Clark. This is Ros Clark Craft, my home here on YouTube, and you'll also find me as Ros Clark Craft on Etsy and on Instagram. And one other thing, which I'll tell you about maybe later or maybe next time. Anyway, I am mostly here. It's Easter Sunday. Happy Easter to any of you for whom that is a meaningful celebration. It is a very meaningful celebration for me because I'm a Christian and it is the most important day in the Christian faith. So I've had a lovely day at church and then lunch with my mum and dad, where my dog ate as much roast lamb as any little dog could possibly want. I mean, it was very nice roast lamb, and you know, we had some too, but yeah, he had plenty. And this video is, I've been meaning to do this for several days before I forgot everything. This is what I did on my holidays. So last week I went on a 4-day, 3-night trip to Paris. For me, it was a birthday treat. It was my birthday last week, and oh, it was just amazing. So I'm going to tell you all about it. I'm going to tell you where I went and what I bought. And I'm also going to tell you a little bit about how you too could experience this amazingness of a holiday. So the company it was organised by, let me tell you that first. I've been on holidays with them several times before and they're brilliant. They do such a great job of organising it. This time we always get a little gift at the end, and this year what they're doing is little tea towels with all of the people involved in it. Anyway, this is Nadine and this is Mark. She is German and he is Scottish, and they are the couple behind Creative Experiences, and you will find them on the internet at creativeexperiences.com. They used to run ski chalets in the French Alps, and in the winter for skiing, and in the summer they got into a pattern of doing craft holidays, and they would invite tutors to come and occasionally do just sort of bring your own retreats where you could take anything you were working on, but mainly tutors, and run them in the ski chalets in the summer. For various reasons, it became very difficult for them to keep running their business in the EU. Mark's Scottish, so they've moved back to Scotland. And now what they're doing is taking their craft part of their business and taking it all over Europe. So I'm just looking. This year, we've got things obviously in Paris, in Italy, in Spain, in France, in Portugal, and in England. Yeah, so all sorts of places, booking really lovely hotels usually, and other places, and still inviting tutors, doing crafting and excursions and so on. But this was a slightly different trip for them. Initially, it was only advertised as an add-on for an embroidery trip to France. So the idea was you would do the embroidery for 6 days, I think it might have been. And then this was this sort of extra 3 nights for anyone who wanted. And then as soon as I saw it, I was like, I really want to do that. But I didn't really want to do the other embroidery. I mean, it was fine, but it was quite expensive. And it wasn't something that I was like, yeah, desperate. Sorry, let me just see if I can get that better. I don't know. I'm not very good at looking at the camera, I know. Anyway, but I really wanted to do the add-on, not least because it was my birthday. And I'm like, that would be such a fun birthday trip. So as soon as they advertise it for separate booking, I'm like, right, I am there. So I will put the link below for them, and I really would recommend them. They tend not to do cross stitch, although I'm going to suggest 1 or 2 cross stitch tutors that they might like to consider inviting. There's a lot of sort of proper fine embroidery, but also free motion embroidery, lace making, beading, sort of wire lace is one they've got coming, and then stuff that's a little bit more textile art. I did one of the textile art courses a few years ago and I really like that. So do go and look at their website. Really, really lovely holidays, and they are such great people, and they just make it easy for you. I don't know, some of you may remember if you've been watching for a while, last year I went on holiday with them to Italy, and I left less than 48 hours after my father had a heart attack, and I'd been really concerned, and you know, at one point it really did look like it was going to be the end. And part of the reason why I felt comfortable going was I just knew if anything went wrong and I had to get back to the UK quickly, Nadine and Mark would sort it out for me. and make it easy. So, but they're so fun and they're so lovely. So do follow them on Instagram and do go and check out their website and do book on one of their holidays if you want. But in order to do the first part of the holiday, you don't necessarily have to go on holiday with Nadine and Mark, although do that. So I arrived on Sunday last week. Sunday evening, we had dinner on a river cruise going down the Seine, which is lovely. I'd been to Paris before, although a long time ago, but you know, the Eiffel Tower is still the Eiffel Tower and so on. But it was really fun. It was a nice evening. You get to see some of the river and some of the sights of Paris, particularly the Eiffel Tower. It was fun remembering what it had looked like during the Olympics. Did you see that in the opening ceremony? And it was all down the river and weird and wonderful displays of all kinds of things going on during the Olympic opening ceremony. So anyway, that's what we did on the first night. But then the next day, first full day, the Monday, we were split into two groups. It was a slightly bigger group than they normally take, and I think they are not going to have such a big group again. But anyway, we split into two groups, and in the morning I went on this textile tour of Paris. So this is with Rebecca Devaney, and this is why I say you could do this part without Nadine and Mark. If you're in Paris and you want to do a textile tour, you can book it directly with Rebecca Devaney at textiletoursofparis.com. Again, I'll put the link below, but you can see it there. So Rebecca is an Irish lady who maybe 10 years or so ago moved to Paris to fulfill her lifelong dream of becoming an embroiderer for the haute couture industry. And she talked a little bit about her experiences training for that. Really hard 6 months, I think, of working 14, 16-hour days, embroidering really detailed, really fine things. But she did qualify and then was able to work for a number of years doing embroidery for the high fashion houses. And they would, commission people to do individual bits or parts of a line or whatever. And I think she found it really hard going. And, it wasn't quite her dream job. But one of the things she found as she was doing that was embroiderers in that industry not always brilliant at sharing information, and particularly information about where you source the best materials. And that was what sort of prompted her to think, well, maybe there are other people who'd quite like to know, because there is some amazing shops in Paris, and I will talk to you about those in a minute. So maybe other people would like to know about that. So what you get if you book a tour with Rebecca, you get a walking tour around the sort of embroidery district of Paris, fashion district, millinery, goat making, glove making, silk flower making, where they did all of those sorts of things. And she points out a number of shops. You go in 4 shops, kind of, but she points out a number of others. And also, as you go around, you pause every so often, and she tells you a little bit about the history of the industry, how Louis XIV, the Sun King, he essentially lured or bribed people from Italy, which was where the source of the finest silks and cloth and ribbons and threads and so on was at that time, and how he basically sent people to bribe them to come and work in France, so that money wouldn't be going out of the country to Italy, but would stay in France. And similarly, although he had his court out at Versailles, he wanted to make sure that people went to Paris to do their shopping. And so he builds the Palais Royal, which is essentially the world's first shopping centre. It's a sort of central social area, but then there's like 100 different boutiques around where you would go in and choose your fabrics for your next dress, and then you'd go the next door and find the right ribbon to go with it, or you do your hat or whatever. Really fascinating. And she talks about how Marie Antoinette sort of what she would do was they had these little puppets that she had made, and they would make sort of model dresses for her on these puppets, and then she could choose which ones she wanted. But then obviously the fabric that the sort of manufacturers, dressmakers would have these puppets and they could show other people and say, look, this is one we did for Marie Antoinette. And they'd be like, oh, well, I'll have that one then. But, you know, maybe in a slightly different colour or whatever. So really fascinating. And then also how it develops through an Englishman called Charles Worth, who 19th century, late 19th century, establishes what becomes really the first haute couture, modern haute couture brand there, and the sort of numbers of people working in the industries and so on. So the first shop we went to, and it's so brilliant, so she gives you her little card on this little envelope at the beginning of the tour, and then everywhere you go, she makes sure you get a business card, so you've got your own collection of all the cards. So the first place we went was this, Ultra Mod Paris. You would not suspect, I think, from a shop of that name, that this is in fact the oldest haberdashery in Paris. It's the oldest haberdashery in Paris, and it originally began, I can't remember whether it was, I think it was the 18th century. I'm going to say the 18th century. You have to go on the tour and find out all the things I'm wrong about. And it began as a supplier to milliners. So the French word modiste, which, you know, if you've kind of read any historical fiction in England came to mean dressmaker, you know, dressmaker, designer. But in France, it very specifically meant milliner, somebody who made hats. And so Ultramod was the supplier to the milliners. And so they would carry ribbons and silk flowers and feathers and buttons and, you know, some fabrics, but specifically that would be aimed for that, not really dressmaking fabrics. And all the sort of underpinnings that you need for millinery. And today they still do. I mean, they have expanded their range a bit. So they've got threads of all sorts of kinds, not just specifically for this, and, you know, ribbons that wouldn't be particularly for hats and so on. But what I loved about them is they have a number of things on show. I'm going to be putting some pictures here. I'm not going to talk you through the pictures because I can't really remember what they are, but I have got some pictures of all the shops. So there are some pictures of Ultramod appearing here. Yeah, so some of their supplies are labelled. I can't remember quite what it said on the label, but anyway, something in French, meaning we cannot get any more of this. This is, you know, when it's gone, it's gone. And those things, you just don't know how old they are, really. I mean, they're not likely to be 200 years old at this point, but, you know, they could easily be 50 or 60 years old. I mean, they could be 10 or 20 years old, but, you know, there's something really special about that place. They never get rid of old stock. And you can see some of it was a little bit faded around the edges because you never know when someone's going to need that. So let me show you the things that I got in Ultramod. We didn't have loads of shopping time with Rebecca, and she did say, you know, one of the things, and I would certainly recommend this if you book a tour with her, she's kind of showing you the lie of the land, and she shows you sort of how to do your shopping in these places, and you get like 10 or 15 minutes to do actual shopping. But she's like, the main point is that you could then go back if you want to. So if you do a tour with her, do it near the beginning of your time in Paris. So then you've got lots of time to go back at your leisure and buy all the lovely things. So one of the things I bought in Ultramod was silk velvet ribbon in this beautiful, beautiful, it's coming out, it's quite red, but it is really a hot pink, sort of fuchsia pink. And it's 1.5 inches wide, I think. And it's just, oh, I mean, silk velvet, if you've ever felt it, just extraordinary. This was not super expensive. This was €7 a metre, I think. And there was sort of one piece that was about 90 centimetres and there was one piece that was about 30 centimetres. And so that's what I got. And that was the end of what's there. I don't think this was one of the super old, we can't ever get this again ribbons. But it's lovely. And I have got a plan for what I want to do with that. This one I haven't got a plan for. I just loved it. So this was, we can never get this again. And this is a woven ribbon. I just think this one's maybe 2 inches, 2.5 inches wide, something like that. And it's just the sort of shine on it. There we go. That's showing a bit better. The colours and the shine on it and the feel of it It's just extraordinary. So it's silk. Yeah, I think it is silk warp and weft. It's a woven ribbon anyway. You can see there's the back of it. And it just, I mean, you could just sit and stroke it. So that was beautiful. They had some of these threads. I just really like this, wound on these little things in various colours. Mine is a dark blue. This is a linen thread, Ligne aux Chinoises. And one of the things that we learned is that there was a big fashion 250 years ago in Europe for Oriental goods, anything kind of foreign and far away and, you know, exotic. And whether it was Chinese or not, it would often be labelled as chinois. And this was linen thread produced in France, but it was given the label of chinois, lino chinois, to give the air of being Chinese. And it's just funny, isn't it? Because these days, made in China is a sort of way of saying tat, absolute tat. And it used to be a way of saying this is something really special and posh. Anyway, this is like a plastic thing. So, you know, it's quite solid. And this is thread. I think this is Glover's thread, although it might be button thread. So it's really quite thick and strong for sewing on something that you do not want to lose, or for sewing through leather or something like that. And it's only 20 meters of it. And it was, you know, it was only a couple of euros, but I just thought it was sweet. And then I also bought for a dressmaking project I'm going to do this. I bought quite a lot of this, 3 or 4 meters of this narrow, sort of centimetre wide. Is that going to focus? I shouldn't think so for a minute. No. Anyway, it's very pretty, pink and green and white ribbon. There we go. What if I do it like that? That's what the proper Flosstubers do, isn't it? There you go. Yeah, super pretty. So that's what I bought in Ultramod. Because it was, oh no, I bought this as well. I'm sorry, I forgot. I just really love these spools. So it's like the size, the circumference of a normal sort of spool of sewing thread, an old-fashioned spool of sewing thread, but it's only half the width. Isn't that fun? And this is, again, this is only 40 meters, and this is a button thread. So again, it's quite stiff. I'm not sure what I'll ever use it for. I just like the spool. Anyway, that was not expensive either. So that was Ultramod. I did not go crazy. Because it was my birthday, I did have some birthday money to spend. And there were a couple of shops where I did go a little bit crazy. Anyway, the next shop we went to was called Annie Bouquet. And we met Annie of Annie Bouquet. And Annie hand paints needlepoint canvases. Really, really stunning needlepoint canvases. I used to do quite a lot of needlepoint. I was quite tempted to do some again. The 2 designs that I liked best, she actually didn't have in stock. So I think that was probably a lucky mistake. They're hand painted, they are not cheap. One of the things I thought was fabulous about what she does, she doesn't use a sort of standard manufacturer's wool, so an Appleton's wool, or I don't know who else makes tapestry wool. Anchor used to make it. I don't know if they still do, or wherever. What she does is she sends her canvases to Aubusson, a very famous carpet manufacturer, and they dye the wool to match the paints that she uses. So if you buy a canvas from her, kitted up from her, the wool matches perfectly the painting that she's done. I mean, I do think that is quite something. And it was a really beautiful shop, and again you'll be seeing some pictures of that. Really little shop, we did fill it, but she was a sweetheart, and it was really lovely to see. And a number of people did buy canvases and kits and so on, but I thought I was going to save my money for something else. But that's another place you went. Where do we go? Akaba. Oh yeah, so this is one of the shops we didn't actually go in, but she pointed out to us. Glove Maker, or Glovier, maybe, don't know quite how you say it, but anyway, place where they will go and measure your hands and fit your hands properly, and you know, either you then buy gloves off the shelf, or I think they can get them made to my hands are not glove sized. I do have one pair of gloves that fits me really well that I knitted. My fingers are very short, and especially you can see my little finger is really quite short, and usually there's a good inch of finger, but they're also quite wide, so you know, large gloves just have fingers coming off here, and smaller gloves just don't get on my hand. And yeah, so, but anyway, like I said, I've made some. We went through various places. I feel like we were pointed out a ribbon shop that I didn't get a business card from and I can't remember, and a cookware shop that looked really fabulous. And we went through oh yeah, all sorts of places. Anyway, the next place we had a stop was here. This is La Droguerie, and again, a few photos here. Now, La Droguerie, quite a modern shop. I think maybe 30, 40 years old, maybe a little bit longer, but, you know, not like ultra mod that's been around for hundreds of years. And primarily known as a knitting shop. I feel like maybe droguerie does mean something to do with knitting. I mean, it's not tricot, but maybe, I don't know quite what it means. Anyway, I loved this. She told us the story of how this was established, and it was sort of in the, like I say, maybe in the sort of 70s or 80s, when, you know, we got past the post-war era and people didn't want to do handcrafts for a while. They'd had to make do during the war and in the post-war era. If you wanted a jumper, you had to knit it or be very wealthy. You know, and if you wanted new clothes, you had to sew them or be very wealthy. And so a couple of ladies who really wanted to see a resurgence of handcrafts once the world had got back to a point where actually, you know, you could buy clothes again and you could buy jumpers and there was a lot more fashion around that was easily accessible. And so they set up this shop and they started designing their own knitting patterns. And what they did, instead of, again, using kind of manufactured yarn in balls and, you know, packaging it up, they have these walls full of these great cones of yarn. And you choose your pattern and you take it to them and they discuss it with you and your size and your gauge. And, you know, if you're having, I don't know, stripes or, you know, different colours you want. And they literally then wind off for you how much you need of every single colour, rather than having to kind of guess and estimate or lay by or buy too many. Or like if you're doing stripes and you only need, I don't know, 10, 20 grams of each colour, you don't want to have to buy a whole 50 gram or 100 gram ball. You just want the bit you want. So I just love that, you know, minimal waste and leftovers, but also then you're choosing from huge range of beautiful, beautiful colours of yarn. So that's, I think, what they're really known for. But they do also sell a large amount of beads and jewellery making findings, of ribbons, and just recently I think they've moved into fabrics and dressmaking. So let me show you what I bought there. I bought, so this is one of their own brand patterns for a blouse or a top called the Mercia. I live in Mercia in England, but we spell it M-E-R-C-I-A. Mercia like this. I think it's Spain. I think it's Spain. Let's say it's Spain. Anyway, good size range. I did have to Google to check what my size is in European sizes, and it definitely covers that. And I like both the top and the blouse. I've made a number of things a little bit similar to this, but the pattern that I've always used has a seam right down the middle here, which is it just makes for quite tricky pattern matching. So I quite like that this has one without a seam. I like having the options on the sleeves and the options with the lengths. And it doesn't need a crazy amount of fabric. And the fabric I bought, I saw it and honestly couldn't not, is this sort of neon pink gingham. Now, I have to say, when I bought it, I thought it was one of their fabrics because I knew Rebecca had told us they started making their own fabrics. It turns out this is not from their own fabric range. I don't really care. I think I could have got this from a UK fabric shop if I'd wanted. I love it. I just love it. Look at that. It's really like a properly kind of neon pink and then a slightly lilac-y grey background. So that is going to be that. And the only other thing that I needed was some binding, and they have a whole wall of binding. And she's like, oh, this one matches, this one matches. And I'm like, I don't want matching. I'm going to have the turquoise. So I've got turquoise and pink. I will see when I make it up. I think the binding sort of goes around the neck and becomes the, can you see on, yeah, these two versions, there's a little sort of cord that comes off the edge of the neck. I think that's binding. So I'll see. I might decide, I might see whether I use the binding or not, but that's the binding I bought. I might do it from the self fabric and make my own bias. But I was pretty excited for those. So I wasn't particularly expecting to do dressmaking shopping, but I did. Right, and that's Rebecca again. It's very sweet. That's her, the front of her business card. And then the final place we actually went, again, we went up various very sweet streets where she was pointing out different places that we might like to go back to. But the final place we went was not a place you could go back to. And so we were all like, actually, we do want to spend quite a lot of time there because it is not open to the public. So you can go there if you are, like if you work for Chanel or Dior. You can go there, I think, if you're placing wholesale orders. Perhaps you own a sewing shop or embroidery shop or something like that, or you're a designer. But if you're a member of the public, you cannot just walk into Auvert Soir. If you are on Rebecca's tour, you can go in to Auvert Soir in Paris to, I mean, it is sort of their warehouse, but you go into the sort of showroom area. There are some photos. Yeah. So you get a little introduction from the lady who currently runs Auvert Soir. I think she's the 5th generation of her family. And there was, I don't know whether it's her daughter or her niece was there as well, representing the 6th generation of the family. And it was just lovely to hear her talk about it. And then she went through all the different threads that they offer and what they're designed for, what people use them for. It was recently their 200th anniversary and they got a special, they commissioned a number of special things. There was an embroidery by Trish Burr that she passed around that was just stunning, and various other things that we passed around. She talked about the silk ribbons that they dye. Yeah, really, really fascinating, really beautiful showroom as well, with a lot of things from the history of Auvert Soir in there, that was just beautiful. And then they had things made up. So I did buy a kit, actually. I bought this little kit. So these are the sort of thing that, you know, they would sell wholesale to sewing shops and haberdasheries and things. And then, you know, number of this sort of kit and bigger things and whatever. So this is a little needle case, sort of pinks and yellows. I don't know that I will necessarily follow. I don't love the design on it, I think is what I would say. But I really love what I've got in here. So these are the ribbons for the ribbon embroidery. And you can see they're in 2 different widths. I think it's a 4mm and a 7mm ribbon. It probably says that on there. Yeah, 4mm and 7mm silk. I mean, aren't they just, they are just my colours. And then some soie d'Alger, which is their stranded silk, to go with that as well. And then it also comes with some felt, some silk fabric and some pink cotton lining. So I need to have a little think. I think I might well make a needle case, but I might do a slightly different design on it. I've never really done ribbon embroidery, so, you know, I'd be interested to give that a go. And I'm very happy to do flowers, but I think I could do slightly different flowers. So anyway, I bought that. What else did I buy at Auvert Soir? Let me think. Sorry, I've got things in piles all over. Okay, so I did buy, one of their kind of pre-kitted up boxes. So there were boxes like this of 103s, of Soie Gobelin, of something else as well that I'm forgetting. And this, anyway, which is Soie Ovale. So let me show you Soie Ovale. Well, this is what it says on the back. Low twist flat filament of raw silk that is smooth, soft and lustrous. It does not snarl in the needle and has a good tensile strength, is available in more than 100 colours. And the collection I bought is flashy because, you know, it's still me. So let me just show you. I mean, I don't know if you can see how shiny that is. Probably not. But it is super, super shiny. I'll maybe compare it because I did buy some 103s. Who would have thought? So I'll maybe see if I can put them side by side. But I just want to show you what it means by filament silk. And I don't know if you're going to be able to see this or not. So can you see how it's kind of fluffy at the end? It is, I'm going to pull it apart a bit so you can see that a bit more clearly. It is not made, there you go, I don't know if that's showing it, that's what I thought. Anyway, it's not made from sort of separate plies or thread. You know, like when you pull apart a stranded cotton, you've got kind of the separate threads. And even threads that aren't meant to be pulled apart in that way will often have separate plies of thread. This does not have separate plies of thread. This is all just sort of silk unspun. I don't know how easy that is to see. I hope you can see there's some fluffiness there, and it's literally just the kind of raw silk, and it is obviously spun together to give it, you know, some evenness along the length, but it's not really held together with a twist. And so what that means, because it's not really held together with a twist, it's super shiny. It's super, super shiny. And it's just got, it sort of lies flat, and it's got a glow to it that is extraordinary. Anyway, one thing I was thinking about actually earlier today, and I don't know if I'm going to do this, and I don't know if the Sweater Violet is the right thread, but this is a top that I made quite recently, and it's got this very heavily embroidered textured fabric. And I was just like, do you know what would be really fun is to put some brightly coloured embroidery sort of highlighting the pattern that's there, maybe on the, it's got a sort of yoke section. And I was like, these would be fun. These would be fun. So we'll see. I'm not absolutely sure. I need to do a little bit more research in what the best way of using Sweater Violet is. But I just think it's glorious. It's like carnival silk. So that's what I bought from that. I didn't buy any, I was very restrained. I didn't buy any ribbon. I didn't buy any soie d'Alger or soie Gobelin. I might have bought a little bit of 103. You know, you bought quite a lot at the point where they say, if you just get one more, there'll be a discount. I'm like, oh, okay, then let me go and fill my bag again. So they had colour charts. You know, like you get, you may have seen people have the DMC colour chart with actual threads on it. So they have that for the soie perlée, for the soie 103, for, you know, for all their different ranges. So, you know, some of us are literally just sitting down with the chart in front of us and a pencil and paper writing down the numbers that we wanted. I don't really know how to show you this because they're all just spools and they're going to go everywhere. Let me show you some of them. And I've also done a little bit of kitting up since, so I'm not absolutely sure these are all the ones that I've got. But anyway, I got some pinks. Who would have thought? And a purple. I got a brown, and that is because I'm kitting something up and I'm like, okay, I am going to need some non-perfect colours. It was really interesting, actually, as we were going around, you know, you could buy some of Vera Soie, particularly the Soie Perlée in Ultra Mod, but Rebecca was like, don't buy that. It's substantially more, 2 or 3 or 4 times more than if you buy it from a Vera Soie. So I really love this orange. It is brighter than that looks, actually. Let me show it to you without the browns. Yeah, I bought 3 browns. I mean, who am I? Anyway, let me show you the orange with the, there you go. You get a better sense of that orange when I put it next to the pink. Oh yeah, this sort of bubblegum pink and another pink. I mean, this is the thing, when you're ordering online, you're like, well, I don't know which pink I want. To be fair, when I'm ordering in person, I'm just like, oh yeah, no, I do actually would just want them all. So I did. Anyway, yeah, they're not all there. Some of them, like I said, I've already put elsewhere. But I bought a good number of Vera Soie. And I didn't spend all my birthday money there, but I spent a good chunk of birthday money there. And I have no regrets, really. So that was Monday morning. I mean, literally, you know, by this time we're just at lunchtime on the first day. We had a lovely lunch, really nice sort of Italian place, and they sort of set up long tables for us and put all the food in the middle, so it was just quick and easy. And then the plan had been that the people who'd done the tour in the morning were going to do what the other people had been doing in the morning, and while they went and did the tour. They had been to an exhibition at the Louvre on art and fashion, which I said, yeah, I definitely want to go to that. They came back at lunchtime and said, actually, even with our timed, booked, prepaid tickets, they'd waited an hour and a half to get in. And once they got in, it wasn't like it was an exhibition that was all sort of in, you know, in one nice central space. It was split over 4 different floors, and the crowds were mad. And I think you were more or less just mixed in with the normal crowds. And I was just like, you know what? I just can't face it. We'd done quite a lot of walking in the morning, and I'm like, I don't want to do that. And it was a nice day. So I wandered back. We went past an art shop in the morning, and I worked out if I went back past the same art shop where I bought a couple of my favourite size sketchbooks, because I hadn't remembered to pack. I went to pack and realised I didn't have any this size. So I was able to buy those and went to the Jardin des Tuileries and did a little bit of sketching. Let me just see. So that was the first one I did. Yeah, there's a slightly hilarious story. While I was doing this, was like I said, it was the first one I did. And I had a new little travel palette. So I was, you know, testing out all my colours. And I'm like, oh, there's a really great pink and a really great red, as well as a sort of fuchsia purple. And, you know, because I'm like, okay, this is going to be perfect. You know, cherry blossoms and all the rest of it. And I was sitting by one of the pools with a fountain in the middle. And so I was just kind of washing out the palette from where I tested all the things, tipped it to pour the excess water into the pool, and 3 of the paint colours fell out. And I was only able to rescue one, which was the black. Great, I never use black. And the 2 that went in the water were the pink and the red. Anyway, so this was the best I had. And it's not too bad, but it would have been fabulous if I'd still had the other colours. And then this was really fun. This is not a very good sketch. But anyway, there were these 2 statues on another lake, literally lined up like they were racing, and then they were just, you know, pigeons sitting all over them. So that was what I did on Monday afternoon. It was lovely and really restful, and watching Paris go by. And then Tuesday we had to get up quite early to get on a bus at 8:15 in the morning to take us to Versailles. Now, I have been to Versailles before, and it was a lovely morning. And I you know, again, we only had half a day there, and I just thought, well, actually, you know, I have been to Versailles. You can see pictures of Versailles. I know what it's like going on a tour of Versailles. You do get, you know, sort of crowded through the rooms, pushed through. And I'm like, you know, I've never really been around the gardens, or if I have, I don't really remember it or didn't pay any attention to it. I'm going to do that. So I spent a really lovely morning sitting in the gardens in Versailles sketching. So I will just show you. So this was before we went in fact. What is it? A toutes les gloires de... Let me try that again. À toutes les gloires de la France. All the glories of France. And there are 2 buildings that say that either side. So that was the sort of roofs going in, and everything is gilded. When you look at it from the front, this whole railings and the tops of every roof and all of this, it's all gold and shining, and you know, it's so impressive. And then what's really interesting, when you look at it from the back, when you're in the gardens, there's no gold at all. I mean, it's big and impressive, but it, you know, all the glamour is on the outside. All the glamour is when you arrive to say, look how wealthy I am. And then once you're there, none of it is wasted on that. But what do we have? We had, this was Saturn in his pool. Yeah. And then this one I really enjoyed. This was, you know, there's a whole lot more of this here with horses and Poseidon, I think, and this sort of dolphin, and then the row of trees. So, you know, they're just little sketches that remind me of where I've been, and I just enjoy them more than taking photographs, because you properly look at something if you have to sit and sketch it. So that was that. And then we had, I love it. We had galette for lunch. We were supposed to have galette and then crepe, but the restaurant were quite disorganised, and we'd all pre-ordered. So they were quite disorganised. They didn't have any of our puddings. So it was fine. We did have puddings, but we had galette again for pudding. But it was delicious. And then we went to Maison Sajou. Oh, yes. Now, I will be putting some pictures here as well. And I'm going to start with what you see from the street. I mean, you could be forgiven for walking past that and not knowing anything was there. Even if you were looking for Maison Sajou, I think you would find you could easily miss that. But anyway, you go into the next window and it says, you know, knock if you want to come in. And so you can do that. If you're going with a group in particular, they prefer it if you make an appointment. And you can certainly make an appointment even if you're going on your own. But it's not just sort of open. You do have to knock and if they're around, you know. But the lady who runs it is a lady called Frederique. And I had thought Maison Sajou, like a Verissoir, had been around for years and years and years. But actually Frederique, who we met, she opened it about 20 years ago. Well, I think exactly 20 years ago. I think they're having their anniversary right now. But it has that feel of something much older. And there's two reasons for that. The first is because the name Sajou, she has some quite long double-barreled name. She's like, well, I can't call it that. You know, it's ridiculous. But there was a previous company called Sajou, which I think maybe had had 2 or 3 previous incarnations and been associated with haberdashery, but had not been in business and had never been registered as a trademark. And so she's like, well, actually, I want to do heritage quality. And that's the other reason why it feels old, is everything is very heritage focused. So I'm going to use this heritage name, even though it's not her name. So it's relatively new. It is a sort of warehouse rather than a shop, but it, you know, there are 2 rooms laid out that you absolutely can look around, and you can buy fabric, you can buy threads, you can buy buttons, you can buy scissors, you can buy all the things that Sajou are known for. So many of her sort of fabrics and her ribbons and even her cross-stitch kits are based on fabrics from Versailles, fabrics that from clothes that Marie Antoinette wore, or from furnishings there, and, you know, or from, so tuile de Jouy fabric, you know, that very classic French fabric with printed scenes, sort of often rural scenes or domestic scenes printed on fabric. That comes from Jouy, which is, I can't remember, 10 or 15 miles away maybe. And where was I telling you about this? Oh yeah, no, some of her fabrics are also inspired by those classic Toile de Jouy fabrics. So, you know, it's not that there's nothing new or nothing original, but it's very much in keeping with things that are of heritage value and heritage quality. Let me show you, because I'm going to talk a little bit more about the history from some of the things that I bought in Sajou. So, let me just see. Let me just unpack my bag. So they were very sweet, and anyone who made a purchase from our group, they said, please pick. They had a big basket of them, and they said, please pick 3 of our thread cards. And so I picked 3 that I thought I would use to tell you a little bit about Sajou. So this is the one that just has their logo on it. We're going to focus. We're going to focus. Can't really tell if that is focused. Yeah, so there you see in the background of that card a design that you see throughout the store, really, on fabrics and on ribbons and all kinds of places. And this is one that is from, I think this is from Marie Antoinette's boudoir, like the wallpaper on it, but I wouldn't swear to that. But it's one of those sort of very classic, very traditional French designs that she has taken, there we go, that's better, taken and used in her business to create these beautiful, beautiful things. So that was the first one. The second one, so you'll recognize something from this, the filo chinoise. And she said, you know, again, the Chinese thing. And one of the things she pointed out was really interesting. 200-300 years ago, when, you know, they were doing, you know, there were hundreds of thousands of embroiderers in Paris. Most of them would not be able to read. And so it was no good having a brand name that was just a word. So what this was the thread with the Chinese man on it. So you'd use your thread, you'd unwind it, you'd be like, okay, that's the brand, that's what I've got to get to carry on working on this same thing. And again, just as with Averrois, not the one from Averrois, the ones from Ultramod, you know, today it's a kind of mocking kind of made in China, but it's still used in this way, in this industry, to indicate something of very high quality. So when she started Saju, this company et tout le monde, so, and everyone, the whole world, they were the company that had the rights to the Philo Chinoise branding. But they didn't really know what to do with it or how to market it. And so they got in touch with her and said, look, we produce this really high quality thread. We don't really know what to do with it. Do you want to come and do a partnership with us? And so that's why Saju sell this kind of, you know, they are now associated with this Philo Chinoise. I'm not quite sure how it relates to the Ligne aux Chinoises from Ultramod. So that was a linen thread, and what they sell at Saju is not the same. But anyway, so this is the company that are making that thread now. This is the brand that they use, and this is the company that they sell through. So they were the three little thread cards, thread winder cards that I picked up. Right, let's see, what else did I get? I'm going to show you some of these other things first. What's in here? What's in here? There is some Averrois in here. Oh, I know what that is. I'm going to leave that in there for the moment. Yeah, so I bought some little things at Averrois and at Maison Saju that if you're at a retreat with me sometime this year and on a table with me, you might be getting little table gifts. So I'm going to leave those in a separate little bag. Good. Right. So here's some other things that I bought. So this was a thing that I really loved. They had a whole series of these, and I just bought this one, but there's a whole series of them. The original Monsieur Saju, I think he did this, and she has now sort of recreated them, and I think is maybe doing some new ones as well. They're albums of little cross-stitch charts, and I will be showing you right now, because I definitely took pictures of these, some of them that she has stitched up over one, tiny cute things, and then she makes them up into little concertina books. You can buy the kit to do the whole thing, or you can just buy the albums separately, and I just thought that, I mean, it's just lovely. It's just a lovely thing. Some of them are just alphabets, some of them have got more pictures in. This one, I like this one because it's actually got some French in it. Some of them have just got English in it, but this one, it's got God, who is Dieu, and it's got Père and Mère, father and mother. It's got this, which is a religious symbol. This is another way of saying Jesus at the top there, and the boat. It's got this one, which has birthday on it. I love this little ship. You can see different kinds of lowercase, uppercase alphabets, little cat. Yeah, really sweet. And I'm sure you can get these from their website or from anywhere that is stocking Saju things, or you can certainly ask them to get these for you. Yeah, and you can see on the back it's got the Tout le Monde and has it got the Fils Chinoise? No, because it's got Retour du Nord, which is their stranded cotton, and their Laine Saint-Pierre, which is their wool thread that they recommend that you do it with. So I bought that. Very chuffed to get that. I thought it was a lovely thing that I didn't know they did. I did buy some more of the little thread things before I knew we were going to get free ones. But anyway, I thought they were very pretty. They've all got the same design, but in lovely colours. I'm not really a bobbin girl, but there are some times where actually a bobbin is really helpful. And I also just really liked the clever little packaging. So you slide it into this bit here, and then you slide that the opposite way, so it holds it inside. So you've got two open sleeves, but by putting them together that way, they're held in the box. So I bought some of those. I bought some fabric. So this is the toile de Juillet that I was talking about. This is quite a small version of the print that they've made into a quilting cotton, and I just thought that would be really sweet for, you know, using on finishes of various things. So I just got I mean, it's sort of a fat quarter, but it's actually quite a big fat quarter because they have their fabrics printed quite wide. So it's a good sized chunk of that. And also this one, which is not very classic Sagy, but I really like the colours of it. So I bought that one as well. So I bought 2 things of fabric. What else have I got in here? I bought some ribbon. Got slightly carried away on the ribbon more than I really needed. Anyway, so I bought the ribbon that matches the fabric. So that might make quite a nice finishing pair, but even if it doesn't, I just really like the ribbon anyway. Let me see if I can show you that. You can see that's all pinks and greens as well. So I bought that one. I bought some of the classic Sagy scissors ribbon in pink. If I'm going to show you. So you could buy these on cards, but you could also buy them like I did by the meter. This one, which is, I can't remember if it's the same one as on the back of the thing I showed you earlier, but it's again a very similar one of the kind of traditional 17th century fabrics. That you can buy these in fabrics, and you can also do, which I'll show you in a minute. One of the things she really likes to do is take a fabric like this and make cross-stitch patterns from it. And similarly this one. So this one would be called Indienne. And it's the same sort of idea as the filo chinoise. It's not necessarily Indian, but it's got that sort of what they thought of in the 18th century as an oriental look to it. And therefore it's called Indienne. So it's not necessarily Indian, but it's Indienne fabric. And sort of when it chintz was sort of coming in from India, I think, around that sort of time. So various amounts of those for different things. And then I think the last thing that I bought that I'm going to show you is I bought 2 of these, and I'll tell you why in a minute. I'm going to show you the other one first. So these are little kits to make little tins. So you get the little tin, the lid that comes off like that. It's empty, you can put whatever you like in there. You get a sort of sticker. I've not done this, but it is this, just, you know, peel off and then it sticks to go round your tin. And I chose the stripy one, but there are ones with all sorts of beautiful decorated things. And then you get a little kit to make, so thread, round piece of cardboard, fabric, and chart. I'm hoping there's a picture of this on here so you can see what I'm going to make. That is just the chart, so I'm not going to show you that. Okay, there isn't. There is one on the website, so I will show you. There might be one on the side here. Yeah, there is, but it's quite small. You get the chart to stitch. It's going to show. There we go. This pattern, which you can see is sort of taken from. Well, it was, and now it's not. Okay, hopefully you can see that. To stitch that, which is taken from one of the fabrics, one of the traditional fabrics, in Sagy thread on this Sagy fabric, and then all the finishing instructions to make that a little stitched lid for your tin. So I thought they were super cute little kits. So I bought that one for me, and I bought this one for a giveaway. Okay, so let me just show you the one that is available for the giveaway. This is the pattern that you get on the sticker. So it's a toile de Juillet pattern. Hopefully you're recognising this toile de Juillet idea now that I've shown you some examples. You get this sort of thing. So much more traditional than my stripy one. But also similarly, fabric thing. Let me just check I'm showing you the right one. Yes, I'm pretty sure this is right. Anyway, it's going to be the one you get. This design to stitch. Oh, come on, you had it. You had it, and then you gave it up, camera. Come on, let's try again. Let's try again. No. Anyway, it's very pretty. There you go, just about. So it's only a little stitching, because it's only quite a small tin. Tin's maybe 3 inches diameter, something like that. And this is your thread that you'll get with it. So you can see really pretty colours from Sagy. and the tin and the instructions. And the instructions, I did check this. The instructions are in French and in English. So I'm not going to show you them, but you can see there, French paragraph, English paragraph. So don't worry that you won't understand the instructions and therefore you won't be able to do it. So that is what we did on the second day. We went for a lovely dinner in the evening. I had a nice relaxed morning on the last day. So I went and sat outside a bakery and had a lovely drink and ate lovely things. And then I got on the Eurostar and came home. It's really nice travelling on the Eurostar. It's so much more relaxed than flying. But also, I took quite an empty suitcase and I really wasn't worried about how much I was carrying. It was quite a lot heavier, my suitcase, on the way home. But it was wonderful. It was really wonderful. I really cannot recommend highly enough. And she came with us actually on the second day as well, although I don't know if she normally would do that. But she came with us to Sajou as well, Rebecca. And it was, you know, it was so much more than just here's a list of places to shop. It was here's an understanding of how this whole industry developed in Paris, what was involved in it. She was telling a story about how sort of during or just after the First World War, the female embroiderers who worked in Paris ended up sort of sparking reform in French labour laws because they were being asked to work for free and they were like, we're not doing that, like for an afternoon a week to help with the war effort or whatever. And they're like, no, that's not how that works. And, you know, they were treated very badly because it was such a female dominated industry. They were made to go and have their lunch in special separate places. Anyway, and they sort of prompted, you know, you just hear she just has so much interesting information to tell you if you have any interest at all in the textile industry, as well as any interest in purchasing textile goods. I would really recommend doing a tour with Rebecca. I don't know how much it is actually because it came as part of my whole holiday, but whatever it is, I would say it's worth it. She's great. She's Irish, like I say, so, you know, but obviously she's lived in France for 10 years or so. So she, and, you know, just things like helping you understand if I want to buy some buttons in Ultra Mod, how do I do that? You know, they're sort of up there on a shelf. Do I climb up? Do I get, you know, how does the process all work? What do I need to ask about? What do I need to, yeah, just all that kind of stuff. It's so helpful, so informative, and just really fun. So I really recommend that, and I really recommend holidays with Mark and Nadine because they just make it so easy and relaxed and lovely. I will be back at some point with an actual proper Flosstube in which I may have done some stitching. I don't often do haul. I don't often really talk about haul in my videos at all. So I hope you'll forgive me this one very special haul video. And I forgot to say, if you would like to be in the giveaway to win the little Sajou kit to stitch the top of a tin and make it for yourself and get, you know, you get the cute little box and you get this. And I'm only going to send this in the UK. I'm really sorry. It's just the way things are at the moment. What would I like you to say? I don't want you to say Sajou because I feel like other people might want to say things about Sajou. I am going to say... no, France also, people might want to say that. What are you going to want to say that is not a word that everyone else is going to want to use? Do people think about this in advance? Okay, I'm going to say poppy because I'm pretty sure that is, well, I don't know if it is or not, but let's say poppy. And it might or might not be a poppy on the design that you will get to stitch up. How about that? So if you use the word poppy, and I will choose the winner of the giveaway when I do my next Flosstube, which is likely to be in a couple of weeks' time. And good luck. And if you don't win, you have got all the links to all the websites and you can go to Paris and you can find all those other things. And probably what I will also do actually is slip in, because I've got quite a few of these, I will slip in a Sajou thread card as well. So thank you for watching. I hope you're inspired. I mean, I hope you're not, you know, drooling too much over your stitching with envy. It was quite special. It really was. And I was very conscious of how privileged I was to be able to go and do that. But I hope some of you are inspired and will be able to go and do something similar yourselves. All right. Thank you so much for watching. See you again.